What are the biggest keys for Ohio State to win this game? Not contend, not hang in there, to win the football game. Well, the first thing that has come to my mind throughout the entirety of looking at this game is they need to stay on schedule offensively. Now, don't misunderstand me. Sometimes when I say that, I'll say it about a team like Northwestern, for example, where they have to be first and 10, second and 5, third and 2. It's almost like a service academy mentality of we know we're running the ball 98% of the time, so got to stay ahead of the chains, can't be getting behind the chains. Well, the reason you say it about teams like that is obvious. They don't possess the explosive nature in their passing game to dig themselves out of those holes consistently. Now, that's not Ohio State, and that's not what I mean when I say it about them. Justin Fields can throw the ball about 115 yards on a rope. He's got multiple All-American caliber wide receivers, good presence at tight end to bail him out. And Alabama's pass defense is not the best in the world. And so I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, again, think about the challenge that's at hand. This is not a situation where you're playing someone you can afford to throw away multiple possessions against. You've also still got a guy named Nick Saban who's very good at combos and mixing coverages on third down and giving you some of those good old-fashioned exotic looks. Here's the thing. You could torch them on the first 3rd and 12 you face in the game. It could go for 27 yards. And then you could face on the same drive, 3rd and 13, and it goes for 14 yards, and you move the sticks again, and you start to feel like you're getting in a rhythm. It's all a percentages game. Knowing you got to answer every series, it's all a percentages game, and eventually one of those safeties spills down in that seam alley, and all of a sudden you got a ball in the air that really is born through being behind the sticks and being in an obvious passing down. Balance is very, very key for Ohio State in this game. Not necessarily something you're going to see on the stat sheet either. It's great, if you could look at the stat sheet and say, man, we ran for 250 and threw for 250, and look at that, that's perfect balance. Well, mathematically it is, but really all you need to achieve, if you're Ohio State here, all you need to achieve is making them think anything could be coming on the next play. If you've achieved that and that alone, then that's balance. So you can't let guys like Will Anderson and guys like Christian Barmore wreck you. And if you're in a critical amount of third and longs, second and longs even, they can, and they can change the game. And the problem there, well, what could be a problem there, we'll see how the game plays out, is Mac Jones and Justin Fields. If you look at them comparatively, QBR, they're right there at the top of the country on standard passing downs. But when you start to mix the element of pressure in, Mac Jones is still there. He's one of, if not the best, against pressure in the country at the quarterback position. Justin Fields has not been that this season. He's got the capability. He hasn't been that so far this season. And so you obviously ramp up the potential for pressure the more pass rushing specialist types you have on the field in obvious passing downs. Here's another key for Ohio State. Now, I don't know how you go about this. Could do it a number of different ways. I think they need to steal one possession each half. So get me 2 extra possessions somehow in this game. That sounds like forcing turnovers, and that's the easiest way to steal a possession, obviously. It's kind of a net 2 possession because you take one from them and you get one more yourself. But you don't always have to force a turnover in order to steal a possession. You could onside kick. You could steal a possession that way. I've seen several games this year. Ole Miss was a perfect example of a team that played Alabama really close. They were going up and down the field on them. I thought they should have started onside kicking attempting in the latter portions of the third quarter when it became obvious Alabama was rendering your entire strategy for standard kickoffs moot because they were already out to midfield by the second or third play of the next series. There was the risk reward that you're normally calculating in your mind for attempting an onside kick. Alabama skews it. If they're in one of these zones that they tend to find themselves in most every game they play where it doesn't matter what you throw at them, they're at least getting to midfield. Their drives seem to start at midfield. What's the risk? What's the risk? You're getting an extra 25 yards that they're going to shave off in 2 or 3 plays. Go ahead and attempt the onside kick. I don't know why more teams haven't done it this year. I do know. I just wish they'd have a special playbook or a special mentality that they coach with against Alabama, even though that's not how you're brought up. That's not how you're trained to coach the game. You play every game and opponent like they're a lifeless, faceless opponent, and you're just playing to a standard. That's great. You also have to be smart enough and tactical enough to realize each opponent is different. And this opponent's not like one you've faced before. So if it takes an extra onside kick attempt, if going for it on 4th down in your own territory, if that's something you have to do, if faking a punt or 2 is something you have to do, do it. Do it. The worst that could happen is it doesn't work out and Alabama's got good field position. I got news for you. They're going to have it regardless of whether you give it to them or not at certain times in a game. So steal 1 possession each half. And then thirdly, You need to make Mac Jones move around. Now, I just read you a stat earlier. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but it's probably 1 or 2. Mac Jones QBR against pressure. He's very good. He's very good. He is not a mobile threat. And so I think a lot of folks look at the element of quarterback and they think to themselves, and they're partially right, if he were to face Trevor Lawrence, if he were to face Justin Fields like he's going to do Monday night, well, Alabama's got the disadvantage there because they don't have the mobile quarterback. Well, it hadn't hurt them all year. The reason it hasn't hurt them is because mobility at the quarterback position is not the paramount skill that you want that quarterback to have with his legs. It certainly helps. But all you really need that quarterback to do, especially in Steve Sarkisian's offense with all those weapons and that offensive line, what you need your quarterback to be able to do is stay on his feet and to be very, very good at extending plays in the pocket. If you're good at that, they don't really care if you can run low 4.5s once you get out of the pocket and you start scrambling. That's great. That's how Joe Burrow, for example, did it last year. That's how Justin Fields can operate. That's how Trevor Lawrence can operate. But man, yards are yards. And so if you pick them up by scrambling 7 yards to your left to buy a drag route time to come open over the middle and you get 19 yards off that versus a 19-yard quarterback scramble, well, guess what they're doing? They're moving the chains, and they're giving you a fresh set of downs either way. And so Mac Jones is very good at that. What I'm talking about is making him move and changing his launch point entirely. Not just moving a couple of steps here, a couple of steps there in the pocket, but allowing Alabama, by and large, to keep the launch point the same. I mean, collapsing that pocket from the inside with, hopefully, your healthy and ready to go interior defensive lineman against maybe a vulnerability for the Alabama offensive line at center in Chris Owens for Landon Dickerson. You start doing that stuff, and I think it's the biggest key for Ohio State in this game, to be honest with you. If that interior pressure is more so than maybe we all expect it to be, and it's a factor in its presence early on in this game, then all of a sudden you don't have Mac Jones just moving around in the pocket, stepping up in the pocket, buying himself another fraction of a second. You got him on the run. You're shaving the field in half, depending on which way he runs. You're taking maybe some of the best receivers in the country out of the game on that specific play. And you start doing that several times, a critical number of times, that could be actually how you steal a possession or two. I mean, that's playing defense to steal a possession. It's kind of what they call football, but that could be a way that you end up stealing some possessions from Alabama. So those will be the 3 things that I'm largely watching for Ohio State here. They do those, or maybe just a number of those, a small combination of those. They got a good chance to win this game.